Hey guys, and welcome back to another live stream of which we are going to do this time around the AFL Fantasy Trade Targets. Do a live stream, answer your questions, as well as just go through all of the potential trade targets as we go into round 10 tomorrow night with the Gold Coast versus Hawthorn at up there in Darwin. So anyway, let's just jump into the video straight away. I'll go through basically like I usually do, where I go through all of the rookies. Well, there isn't really any rookies, and then go through all of the trade targets. And then by then, hopefully, we'll have some questions in the chat, and I'll go from there answering those questions. But anyway, let's jump into this, I guess, live stream itself. So, like we usually do, going through here and going through the rookies, I have gotten rid of the trades that I initially had because didn't want to give them away for tomorrow's video there with as I'll do my team and my trades, but you'll probably get a fair idea of what I'm going to do with the trades, I guess, in this video, dependent on one man's fitness, I guess, would be the main thing. But anyway, Harry Boyd is the lowest break even in fantasy. -4, but he's not going to play, so I wouldn't be basically looking at him. And then I wouldn't also be bother trading him out. Saad Al-Houli is probably the first and one of only rookies that we have this week realistically in fantasy, given that he's priced at 312k. Him and Cooper Simpson are probably the two rookies that I'd be looking at. They're just priced in that window where you can still get an upgrade done. Al-Houli, if we just immediately go straight to DFS and look at his stats, he played a non-sub game, I believe, against Sydney, if my memory is correct, because you had Dylan Shiel as the sub. And you can see in adjusted minutes, he's gone 77.5, but is actually going at 42.8 because he's had some he's been in the vest quite a lot. This was his first non-vest game, and his first game where he actually had second game where he actually had a decent enough tog, if we just look there. And there we go. We can look at all his stats there, and we can see that, he really did have really good tog, as well as just scoring and potential is right there for him. He's had 30-point quarters in both games that he's actually played decent enough tog. He's also had a 28-point quarter as well in that game against Sydney. He was on 62 at halftime. If you get 64 a game from a rookie like him, you're pretty happy about it, let alone having a, in the end, an 82-point game is a pretty good game to have from the likes of Al-Houli, and that's why I think he's the number one trade target. His break even is only going to get better, you would think, given that -1 that he had against a West Coast is going to be not completely out of his system, but relatively out of his system in the long run, which should help him out, as his break even should start to really drop down. If we go over here, and I'm pretty sure it will allow me to do it from here. If we look at Al-Houli just averaging, let's just say a 65, then you'll look at it and go 55k, 51k, 50k. That's 156k in the next 3 weeks just from going in the mid 60s. Whereas if we even apply that 77.5, if we apply that, that is done in basically non-major sub-affected minutes, we see that his price point goes upwards to 65k, 66k, 68k price rises, netting him literally just shy of 200k in the next 3 weeks if he goes at what he is currently averaging in above 60% tog minutes. So that's why I think if Al-Houli can stay out of the vest, then he is going to be slightly critical as a rookie just because of his scoring potential. And they do play annoyingly on the Saturday night at the 7:35 game time. So that is a little bit annoying for potential. If he is the sub, then you're kind of in a bad spot. especially because you'll have already had, I'm pretty sure if I'm looking at this correctly, where is the likes of Freo? Freo play in the 4:15 slot, so Cooper Simpson, the other popular rookie, will have already played. Now, moving on to Cooper Simpson, if we actually look at it'll be this one here. If we go over to Cooper Simpson here, let's go over to Simpson. We'll see this with his stats. You'll see that he had one game for 59, and that was playing in a different position to his actual games in previous years. If we look at it, you can see this in the non-sub games. It's a little bit more obvious, it feels like, at least. You can see the other non-sub game he played, and he played a lot more forward in it and didn't score too well. Whereas he's played off like a halfback, and he's definitely scored a lot better. If we just get the State League games back, you can see he has played at halfback for a little bit of this season. I would say, well, pretty much the whole of this year in the Waffle, which he scored all right. He scored 71.2 in the 5 games. So that is still decent enough scoring there. So, yeah, I think he's definitely a guy that can go into the 70s for scoring. If we just go to Cooper Simpson, he is a forward, which does give you a little bit more, I guess I would say, flexibility is probably the way to frame it there, in terms of there's not many forward players that are really actually going to be generating enough cash. But if we just put Cooper Simpson going at 65 for the next 3 weeks, you'll see 51, 61, 58K cash generation, which puts him from 260 up to 430K. Obviously, there needs to be a caveat that these guys could actually be sub or just be dropped. We've seen that with Huswaite. We've seen that with other guys as well. The rookies basically are playing 1 or 2 games, or even just have a bad game in general, and then their cash generation is really stuffed for the foreseeable future. So, yeah, it is a little bit, I would say, worrying with these guys, obviously, at this point, that we really do need a lot of cash generation, but we're probably, these guys tend to generate cash as well, just because their job security isn't as good as obviously the rookies that start and debut in round 1, etc. So that's the 2 main rookies, I would say. Then you've obviously got Boxall, but I think a lot of us jumped on to Boxall before round 9. And then he dropped the stinker, had 10% less time on ground, had 4 less tackles and 6 less kicks, which is pretty much the difference there. That's 34 points in its own right there. So that's the reason why he didn't score as well. And yeah, it's a real trouble, because you could easily see him being a sub candidate as well, potentially this week, I would say. And if he is sub, then he's probably still going to beat that break even, because Ross does like to use the sub relatively early. I'm pretty sure DFS also have a sort of show for the sub, even though I say that as he didn't use the sub last week, I'm pretty sure, in Trav. So if we just go to, the likes of St Kilda, you'll see that it doesn't actually show the players that have been sort of subbed in, subbed out, their time on ground, I would say, but you can see the Travalia non-sub, the first non-sub of the year, I believe. But yeah, he definitely did hook Hugo Garcia early. I don't know about the Liam Henry one. But yeah, there definitely have been subs that he has pulled early, in particular that Hugo Garcia won a couple rounds ago. So it would be worrying if he was in the vest, but you'd almost, just because the cash gen could very easily be stalled. But then at the same time, Ross is probably one of the ones that will do it the earliest out of anyone. But having said that, I think a lot of people won't be moving on to him this week, and they'll be moving on to Al Houli at the exact same price, or even Cooper Simpson 52K cheaper. Then we have Riley Hardiman, 381K, has shown he can score. It's just a problem of that the first couple games he was in the vest, but when he's not in the vest in the last 3 weeks, he's averaged 60.7, and I think that's only going to get better. And it kind of has slightly stifled, I would say, Caleb Daniel as well. So if you could look at that reason alongside Harry Sheasel being back there. But those two have kind of stuffed over Caleb Daniel a little bit. So it will be interesting to see how this one develops, but he's one of the lowest break evens and one of the better job securities, I would say, out of any of the rookie-ish price players. So if you wanted to go there, I wouldn't be saying no to it, given that he's got Richmond and then Collingwood and then the bye and then West Coast Freo. He could be a handy scorer throughout the next 3 or 4 weeks just because of his job security. But then again, we do also have potential of Carroll coming back, which should help us. Then we've got Oscar McDonald, probably not going to play unless Sean Darcy doesn't get up. But then again, he would be playing as a key forward, which they don't generally score well. He's had a 60 and a 58, so he has scored all right in the past, but he has kicked 3 goals in those games. If he doesn't kick a goal, then you'd hazard a guess he's probably going to score somewhere in about the 50 range or lower, I would say. And then Hayes did his ACL in the Sydney game, but looks definitely a prospect for the future at 20 years old, 20 years young. Lucas Camporelli with Carlton, it will be interesting to see how they go with the potential of TDK being out. There is big, big potential. I got a little bit of news from somewhere that said that TDK was out, and that was a good 3 or 4 hours before Mitch Cleary posted about it. So yeah, it'll definitely be interesting how that develops if it because the message was that TDK was out with the larynx issue, which is exactly what it's saying in the media, that he's in doubt. So we'll see how that definitely develops, because it sounds as if he's out from sources, but they haven't officially made that ruling. But on Carlton itself, with Cowan as well as Akers, I think, being on the injury list, it does open up a wing spot and a half-back slot. And it's basically, there's quite a couple of players that have potential to be in those slots. You've got Doherty, Carroll for that half-back slot. And then for the wingers slot, they could also just push up Ollie Hollands, as well as Boyd on that halfback slot, I'm pretty sure as well. But you've got in the wingers, you could also, as I said, push the likes of Ollie Hollands up. They could also bring back Ben or Lucas Camporelli, or Ben, or bring back Lucas Camporelli. So it'll be interesting to see how that one sort of develops, I guess, in the next little bit, because we could see Lucas come back, but I don't think he will. Will Lorenz, I don't think we'll get a recall, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. So yeah, that will be interesting in the, I guess, to see how that develops, but I don't think he will. Cochrane's still out injured, Armstrong injured. Sandy Brock should get a reprieve from being dropped this week, you would expect, because of McGovern being re-injured if I bring up the AFL injury list. So there's that one there. If we just go over to, or scroll all the way down to the West Coast Eagles, McGovern is in concussion protocols. So, that will be interesting to see how that one goes. But you'd expect, I'm pretty sure he's already been confirmed to be out. And then we've got CJ, a guy that I've seen a little bit in the comments for, and just around social media like Twitter and stuff like that, around bringing him in potentially as a stopgap. I just don't think I'd be going there. But then again, he also, when he doesn't play sub minutes, if you take out the 20, he's got 390 in 5 games. That's about 78 or so. So yeah, that isn't the worst at 559K. But also I'm looking at it going, is he actually going to score terribly well? And he's also playing at Darwin, which you really do struggle for marks. If I just quickly look at this one and look at the Darwin game that we had, it was this game here. I want to just look at the marks that were there. There was still 100 marks to 74. And then 68 tackles to 48. So it actually wasn't too bad in terms of the dewiness there, and in terms of the marking capabilities of both sides, as I'm pretty sure they took near enough around their normal marks. I'm just going to double check that on the AFL app, as it gives a good indication of it, I would say. If we just look at the team stats and then go to the marks, the marks are pretty much were no different to what you would expect on a normal ground. And then basically from here on out, there is no one else that are rookies that I would be looking at all. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for the rookies. And then we get to the coach's choice for the popular trade-ins. You've got the rookies of Simpson and Hooley being the obvious sort of trade-ins, I would say, as I mentioned in the rookie section of this. So yeah, they are definitely rookies that you can turn to, as I think they hold their spot for at least a couple weeks, but we'll see how that develops. Then you've got Nick Martin. I think this is potentially people chasing the score, as he has gone 80, 70, 72, 73 in the past. So he's averaged 98. Last 3 he's averaged 97. Last 5 he's averaged 107. I just don't know if I like this, to be honest. Sydney were just giving them anything that they wanted, Essendon, and they had 4 guys go above 27 touches, including Andy McGrath, I think it was Redden and also Reed that went above 27. And I think they had Pryor at 24 or 25. So a lot of guys getting a lot of cheapish touches. So, and he also had 100% game time, which is interesting. So against the Bulldogs and then Richmond, I could see him bouncing back. But also at the same time, I could see him just dropping another sort of 100 or even just, an 80 score, and then just not really being too relevant. And so I'd rather wait on Nick Martin at the moment. Not really going to move out of my price range, I would say, or out of the really, really to be really hard to grab, I would say. So yeah, definitely a guy I'd just wait and see. Philippou, I feel like this is a lot more to do with trying to get to Weasel almost in a way, 2 upgrades out of 1. If we look at Philippou, and then we also look at the outs at the moment, Caleb Daniel is priced at 809k. That basically gives people 140k to go from, say, a De Koning, and I don't even think I'd have enough to be able to do it just in the just looking at it right here, to a Cherry. I don't think I might. Let me just show this for practicality's sake. But I'm pretty sure a lot of people are looking at doing something of this magnitude, of basically going to a Philippou, if I just type his name right, and then also getting in a Tristan Cherry in the ruck line, not in the midfield. He basically acts as a midfielder, but yeah, doing something like this just because of the ruck line. This could easily be something that I actually do right here. You get out of the likes of a Caleb Daniel, who probably will have a comeback score, but 112 break even, 88 average isn't really in the top echelon for the forwards. If we look at all positions in the forward line and look at average, he's now suddenly about the, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's 11th best for averages for the forwards. And if we take instance the last 3 rounds, you'll find that he's way, way down here, down in no man's land. I can't even find him. Down in, at 70 for the last 3. So, yeah, he's a lot further down, and a 70 across the year, if we look at that, translates down to near enough the bottom here, near enough where Sam Davidson is. And a lot of people are already trading out Sam Davidson there. So that's why I'd be potentially looking at the game plan or the trades that I was just signaling there, but also could look at maybe not going a Philippou and maybe just going someone like maybe even a Cooper Simpson, and then just playing someone else there, going and doing that, because that would give me especially 400k to be able to make moves, which would be 2 rookies next week, and then do something else, etc. the week after. I think I can't actually do it because of Caleb Daniels 809k. I was going to say do something with Riley Bice, but can't do that. Could do it with other players, but not going to. But that means that next week it's an easy choice for me to basically go Riley Bice up alongside some other people if I was to go with Cooper Simpson instead of, or Cooper Simpson or Sardar Hooley instead of the likes of a Mateus Philippou, who, if we really look at it, I don't know if I like the sort of underlying numbers for Philippou, I would say. if we look at it, he had in total 0% CBAs. He hasn't had a single CBA. If we look at the point scoring for Toggle quarter by quarter, we can get rid of the state league games. If we look at the point scoring, he basically had one good quarter. And we know that when he had a game of 119 last year where he had 0% CBAs. So, and he had 70% Toggle, which is more realistic to what he was doing with mass CBAs. So it will be interesting to see their how they line up St Kilda next this weekend, because if Philippu's in the center, he could be an easy jump on, because we've seen his stats as a midfielder in well, how much time did he play on ground in this game? He played 71% TOG on ground and 48% CBAs for a 26, but outside of that, he's played 68% for a 117, 70% for a 96, 79% for a 96, and then 89% TOG for a 119. So it will be interesting to see how he goes. But yeah, he could be a guy that we jump on in a week or two's time. I don't know if it's going to be potentially this week, as yeah, you could potentially even next week just do a Bice to a Philippu swap and then upgrade another line, like with a Lindsay up or something like that, potentially. I've also seen people look at like a Peatling. I don't know if he's going to show up anywhere soon here, but yeah, he's also another forward that you could potentially look at grabbing. Tom Green, he's one that if TDK gets up and plays, which we don't know about yet, although the sources have said that he's out, and then 3-4 hours later, there was sort of a rumblings around on social media, at least, of it. If he's not out, sorry, I should say, and playing, then I would go Tom Green. I think Tom Green is the type of midfielder here that was just going to put up consistent numbers. He's not going to blow it away, but it's just going to put up your consistent 100s, 110s, 115s for the whole rest of the year. Has that round 16 bye, which is a little bit annoying. We know that the round 16 bye is fairly populated with the obviously GWS. You've got Brisbane, and you've also got Geelong on that bye, I'm led to believe. So yeah, will be interesting there. But I think Tom Green is going to be near enough around the top 8 midfielders, probably in the top 8 midfielders. If you take out Bailey Smith, who's a forward, as well as Cherry and Gawn, I believe in the top scorers. If we just go to average here, you'll see, I believe you've got even the likes of a Darcy Cameron above in the ruck slot, and also I'd expect a Bontempelli. What rank is he? Rank 8. And then you've got Tom Green down here. I'm actually going to hazard a guess that Cherry's just going to go on a run and get into that top 10. But looking at that, if you look at it, you remove the likes of Azorco. You remove, well, Bontempelli is slowly, I think, going to slow down. But you remove Zorko, you remove Cameron, you remove to a certain extent Connor Rozee, who's going to become a defender in a couple of weeks' time. Then that's already 3 guys. You remove Gawn, that's 4. And then you get Bailey Smith out. That's 5 guys removed from the point scoring. Then Tom Green's the 5th best midfielder. That's already, I don't even know if I removed Bontempelli or not. But yeah, you've got, say, Bont, Merritt, Dawson, Dunkley, and then that is it. So you've got, 4 guys ahead of him? Something like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and Butters is 5. So you've got 5. So he would be the 6th if you had Butters and Bont. Well, Butters has played 6 games. You'd have 6th if you include Bontempelli, and 5 if you don't. 4 points scoring. So I think he's just your consistent guy that's always going to put up very, very similar numbers. And so I think he's going to be a guy that we look to in the next couple of weeks, as he will be one of the better long-term guys to jump on. Wangani Malira had a 108. He's been ultra consistent. He's also ranked as the 13th best scorer and one of the better defenders to grab. So I think he's another guy that you can look at grabbing there for your sides, as he's just going to put up constant scores. Look at this, 86-91 is his lows, 131 is his high. But if you take out the top and the bottom score, he has a range of 91 to 113, which is a range of 22 points across 7 games. Is that? Yeah, that would be 7 games. So that's why I'd be looking at the likes of a Wangdi Malira. He's a guy I've said always is a pretty consistent across both formats in particular, but fantasy, he's still just an outstanding player to have, and yet will be probably top 2 or 3 defenders for the year once you remove the likes, once you add the likes of Rosie. And I think Sheasel will also just start gaining ground on him because he has the ability, Sheasel, to go 140, whereas I don't think Wayne Malira has the consistency to do that. The ability to do it consistently. Josh Dunkley, another guy that a lot of people were saying because of his early 130 score, you should probably disregard a little bit. And I think that's not really the case. If you take that out, he's 8.62 through 8 games. That's an average of like 107.8, which if you put that into perspective, 107.8, if you remove his top game, if we go to averages, 107.8, that basically puts him as the 6th best scorer in the competition. So, yeah, that's definitely interesting that it doesn't really impact his scoring in terms of his top scoring compared to the rest of the comp when you do that. So I think it was maybe a little bit of fear-mongering in that, just trying to remove his top score. His lowest scores are 97. If you remove that 130 itself, like I was saying with the likes of a Wangadeem Halira, he's a really, really consistent guy. A 98 to 116 split gives you an 18 difference across his high to low, removing out his bottom and top game. But he's still got a 33 difference if you were to remove the top and to keep the top and bottom. So he's ultra, ultra consistent. And he does have the ability to go large. And also we are expecting, I would say, a Clayton Oliver potential tag on a Lockie Neal, which if that does happen, then I have a feeling that the likes of a Josh Dunkley could be on for a huge game itself. They are playing at the Gabba. I don't know about the weather in Melbourne on that. It is the Sunday, isn't it, that they play? They play on the Sunday. I don't know about the weather for Melbourne. Someone can actually probably just put that in the chat, and it would be better suited than me trying to find it whilst doing this live stream. GF, I just don't really particularly like the players much, to be honest with you. Comparative to just grabbing keepers, but maybe this guy is the cheap guy that we can just grab instead of like a Bice or something, or grab directly from a Bice or something like that. Or maybe he's the better play than the likes of a Philippou, but I just don't know if he's going to do enough, I would say. Let's just look at his cash generation, because a lot of people would be looking at him for his cash generation, I would say. Let's just look at Giath for his cash generation. If he was to go, say, a 95, let's be a little bit conservative. 95, the next 3 weeks, he goes up 65K, 66K, 53K. That's a rise from 599 to 783K, which is a rise of 184K in 3 weeks, going at 95. If we take his last couple games and go, he's going to average 110, which I don't think he will, but potentially could. If we say, let's just say he's going to average 105. Let's look at the cash generation from 105. He goes up 73, 79, 67K, and goes up in the end 219K across 3 rounds, averaging 105. So if he does do that, there is mass cash gen there. But we've also seen some players do something like this per se, and there still is 163K cash gen if he goes 105, 60, and then 105 again. But if he doesn't score that next 105 and goes, say, a 70 here, then suddenly that cash gen wears away a little bit. So it's going to be interesting what happens with Diaz. And obviously he does play the Thursday night game, so you'd be locking yourself in early before all the teams are finalized and even before the TDK news, which could be a little bit risky. And that's why if TDK is named, I would still be wary about doing anything with the Thursday night games in terms of trades, because TDK could obviously be out injured here, and that could cause chaos on the Friday night. Then we go down to Peatling, another guy, 797K. You can pretty much do a direct swap from Caleb Daniel. And in a way, I don't like that straight swap just because it feels like Peatling, although scores decently well when the likes of a Matt Crouch is out of the side, who has 3 to 5 weeks left on the sideline, if we just look at the point in what he scored in the 3 games that he's played, he's gone 117, 88, and 112. That amounts to 317 divided by 3 is a 105.666, which is very, very good. I would almost just rather get him from an upgrade. So, yeah, if I could upgrade someone like potentially a Lindsay and a Cleary to a Simpson and a Peatling, let's just look at this. Let's just try some different scenarios here. So if we go, say, a Finn O'Sullivan and a Caden Cleary, let's look at how much cash I have. 917, that's not going to be nearly enough. Let's look at other potential options here. If I was to go with a potential, it would probably have to be a Lindsay, who has for the next couple of weeks, if we look at Lindsay and go back to here and go back to midfielders, if we look at Lindsay, it's still loading, isn't it? We look at Lindsay in terms of midfielders and their cash generation. If we go and say that he's going to score 60 for the next little bit, he goes up 2K in 3 weeks' time. If we say he's going to go back and score an 80, he suddenly goes up 16K, 22K, and then 30K. So there is reason to say that he is going to go up a little bit more in cash. But if we look at his last couple of weeks, he's averaged 58 in the last 3 and also 57 in the last 5. He's had 2 games above 60. He's also had a 33 and a 44. So I would say he's almost the guy that you probably want to trade out in itself. So if TDK is fit, then I'd probably be looking at something. If we go to all positions and then go Cooper Simpson here, and then just move him into the forward line, and then have also the likes of a Peatling per se, or someone else. If I just go to all players that I can afford, some reason that's not loading properly for some reason. So let's just go back and redo it, because that's obviously a little bit of a glitch on the AFL fantasy website's part. But if we go back to this and go to the forwards and pick Simpson here quickly, just to get him on there, and then we go to any players from pretty much any position, because that can make it work, you would see that Peatling's probably the one guy that looks more obvious compared to others. Grab him up would leave 4K, and I think that would be a decent trade, because 3 to 5 weeks of Peatling gets you through to pretty much the buys, and then you can trade him off, I think, as well there. You could also look at, if I just do quietly here, something like Lindsay and also the likes of Lindsay and Daniel, and then go and grab up the Simpson here or something, or I can grab up Saad Al-Houli. If I just go to midfielders, Saad there should load itself, and then let me just also put a ranking in the forward line to make it so it doesn't glitch out. And then for the midfielders, this was the sort of obvious trade that I was looking at. It's like a Green or something of that regard. I could also just, I know it wouldn't physically work, but that would give me dead on the amount for a Cherry or something like that. So yeah, I could also even look at just a Daniel up to a TDK to Cherry swap there as well through, and also get Lindsay to Al-Houli as well. So there's definitely avenues. I would say that if TDK is out, I would say that this is probably going to be my most likely trade set. If I just do this, I think that works. Hopefully it does. That's probably going to be my most likely trade set there, with getting in a Cherry and also getting in the likes of an Al-Houli for Lindsay. Yes, it does mean that Caleb Daniel, I have to cop that for a week. I could also just do, instead of, I could also just do Daniel down to an Al-Houli as well as the likes of Corey is saying here. If I was to do, and I was thinking about this in its own right when he was saying this, but if I just do this and then trade the likes of a Caleb Daniel, and then It's going to glitch itself out. If I can do it this way. I think this works, but let me just show you how fiddly the likes of the app is, I guess, in its own right. I don't think I can do it. So anyway, let's just reverse that. It's not going to work. So roll back theme. This is how finicky the app, the website is in itself. So if I do this and then I do the likes of a TDK, which these are probably going to be my own set of trades itself. And it might be a Cleary that drops out if it is, if TDK is fit. But if TDK isn't fit, it would be up to, where it's to a Cherry. I have seen some people going to a Cameron who's done really, really well. As he has done, really consistent. But I just like the Cherry being able to, he's gone absolute monsters in the past, Cherry. And if he can pick up his tackling numbers, I feel like Cherry is a guy with the run that he's going to get could easily go 130s, whereas I don't know if Darcy Cameron can. Darcy Cameron has done 140 in the past, though. So in this season so far. So yeah. And then that would leave me with 670K. And then let me just put in the likes of Rankin into that forward line. And then I'd have the likes of Sard in the midfield. I think I have also looked at potentially the likes of an Angus Sheldrick, who was a really, really good scorer as well, into that midfield mix as well. Because when he scores, when he gets full games, I feel like Sheldrick is a guy that could go not 100, probably about that 80-90 mix, whereas I don't know if Al Hawley can do that, even though he went 82 in the last game against Sydney. So that's sort of what I'm looking at in particular. Would also have hopefully Gross does play for the sake of my super coach. For anyone that sort of has a keen eye there, you would know that Henry Hustwaite is out. So I have a little bit of a bench problem in that format, but I'm hoping Gross does play, but I'm just looking at the loops here. Gross plays the last game of the round. And also Carlton play early. When do North play on the Sunday? Do I have any loop potential? Camporelli probably not going to play, but also plays on the really, really early game. And we have no one else really to be able to loop there. So it would be running blind with the midfield of El Hooley and Boxall. My forward line would be almost complete in here. And it would just be basically, for me, upgrading Lindsay, El Hooley, Boxall, Rivers, Bice, probably in the end, Zach Reed and Caleb Sarong and Jai Newcomb. But then again, Connor Rozzi's probably going to go into the back line for like a Riley Bice. So yeah, there is a lot to do, but it's basically midfielders almost from here on out for me, I would say, comparative to most sides who have a lot of the midfielders. But I'd be happy finally to grab up the two best rucks and have them, whereas I think a lot of people don't have the likes of a Gawn. He's 28% owned and Tristan Cherry is 55% owned. But if you look at, I believe you can do it this way. Let's see, coach's choice. Is there a way to look at this in terms of the top percentage brackets? I don't know if there is. So, yeah, it is quite annoying that you can't see like the top coaches and stuff like that and how they're going in terms of their scoring, their players and their ownership, etc. Just another thing it lacks in terms compared to, I guess, I would say the other platform in Supercoach. So anyway, to finish off, I guess, the trading, guys, we talked about Peatling. Peatling's a guy, obviously, I said that we consider. Rowan Marshall, if you wanted to pod against a Gawn, I would say it's very, very hard to sort of pod against the likes of a Tristan Cherry just because of his high ownership, especially in teams that are actually competitive. So Rowan Marshall is a guy against the Eagles is probably going to go huge, has the offset buy to also the likes of a Tristan Cherry. So you could easily trade into a Cherry on the Rowan Marshall buy, but he also, I believe, has the same buy as Melbourne itself. Let me just grab a Melbourne player here. No one's trading in anyone other than Gawn. Gawn has round 15, so completely disregard that point. They have differing buys, which is good. You always want your rucks to be on differing buys itself and not on the same buy, because that's when you really could get damage, because sometimes we don't have a playing R3, the likes of a Harry Boyd, who could also potentially well, he's not playing at the moment, but if he was to be, imagine on the round 13, all your rucks are just out. Then Zorko, Sinclair, they're back into form. They'll be fine. They'll be good trade-ins. Then you've got Kennedy as well. I don't like the Kennedy pick as much, but obviously he's come from average of like 70. He's actually been probably one of the better forwards to start with, as he's just gone out pretty well, especially the last 4 or so weeks. I just wonder with everything if he is going to be sort of top of the line, but he probably has shown that he will be. So just a guy I think that isn't going to get away from you, and you can probably just grab up post buy, especially because he's got that round 12 buy. And you'll be looking at guys like a Bontempelli, like a Butters, etc. post their buy. So yeah, I would just be waiting there. Harry Sheezel, a lot of people trading into him. Max Holmes looks like that they're going to put Bergman on him, so I wouldn't be looking at the likes of Max Holmes. Bontempelli, think you can wait after this 104. You can wait a little bit for his price to come down. I think it will come down eventually. I think he will play a tough game or two, and then even if he just scores hundreds, he's going to come down like 15k each week for the next couple. Bins at 424k, I just don't think we can attack that, especially if he has one bad game or even just his sub or something like of that manner. Then he's not going to generate enough cash. But I don't expect him to be sub in the near future. But we've also seen that these guys can just be subbed out, etc. quite easily. So I wouldn't be touching that. You can just look at what happened with Henry Huswaite. Ed Richards, 99 average. He's a guy that I would potentially look at if he can just keep this form up for the next little bit. He had a slowish start to the year, but he hasn't been doing anything bad. It's just that he hasn't really had the real hype games other than this last game against the Suns where he went 1-3-1. So I just would like to see that sustained form for a little bit. Obviously, we talked about Tristan Cherry, and the run he's coming up to is just mega easy. He comes up against the likes of Richmond, who I think even leaked 80 points to Matt Flynn. And then you also had Williams as well. If we look at Bailey Williams, he scored 73. And if we just check again, Matt Flynn in the end scored 82. So that's 150 points to a duo ruck that aren't the best rucks anyway. So I think that really shows that the likes of the Richmond side is a really good side to be looking at for the ruckman to play against. But if we look at the next couple of weeks for ruckman, basically till the end of the buys, and we look at the likes of North Melbourne, you'll see this run here, 5.48 for North Melbourne here with in terms of their plus on their average. And it basically doesn't get any worse. If we look at this, they are 2.52 for the whole rest of the comp. But if we also look after rounds 20 to 24, you'll see there Sydney go bang, bang, bang in that 5-game stretch. But also you've got North Melbourne 2.91. If we remove Adelaide, because Adelaide I think are the toughest ruck matchup in the comp at the moment, they're back in 8.14, which just shows how rough the Adelaide matchup is. So, yeah, they play Adelaide, I think, once in the run home, is it? If we look at this quickly, they play Adelaide once in the run home and Melbourne itself. So, yeah, they basically have this one tough game against Adelaide, and that's it for Tristan Cherry in terms of really, really tough games. I wouldn't even say Melbourne's that tough of a result, a ruck game, other than the fact that Gawn's just been on an absolute heat of the last 3 or 4 weeks, which probably heavily influences the ruck sort of scoring against. I don't think he'll do that for the rest of the year, but we'll see. And then some other guys here that I just don't think are going to be too relevant in terms of trade-ins there. And then we go to the trade-outs. I'm pretty sure they're going to be pretty obvious. Bice, what's he priced? He's got a 79 break-even, so it's not even that bad for a Bice. And you'd expect it's some sort of bounce back from Sydney. We'll see if they name Amati, Mills, and also someone else could be back. Let me just check the injury list for Sydney. You've got Callum Mills a test. You've also got Joel Amati a test. You've got Robbie Fox a week away, which is interesting. Totally 2 weeks away from the VFL. And you've got Tom Papley still 4 to 6 weeks away. And then Lewis Melican a couple of weeks more of suspension. He's still got 2 weeks left of that. But Sydney, yeah, they definitely do have some guys coming back in the near future. And if we do look at this, something that I was mentioning on the Monday night stream, here it is. The lineup that I'd actually rather, here's sort of the lineup that I would like for Sydney, which probably not going to happen. But let me phrase it like this. If Amati's back, just replace Buller's name with Amati here on this team sheet. I don't want to see Mills back in, but watch them put Mills back in instead of like a Snell or a Hanley. But I would love to see a team that has something like a Hamling, Snell, McCartan, Blakey, which gives the 3 tools to go up on Lewis Young, Curnow, and then also a Mackay, and then Blakey as that 4th more intercepting tool. And then Wicks and Rampy on the as more of the smalls, and then Roberts on the bench as well. I would like to see the sort of wingers get dropped almost in a way in Lloyd, and Lloyd dropped in Florent to sub, but we know that's not going to happen. But that would put Bice on the wing, which should actually help him out a little bit, I would say, because the wingers for Sydney actually do really generate some score in terms of fantasy. We've seen that with Lloyd. We've seen it with McInerney. We've seen it almost with Florent as well. So that should help out Bice a little bit. And then you've also got, the obvious Heaney, Rowbottom, Warner in the midfield. And then forwards would be the 3, or is it 2? 2 tools in terms of McLean and Buller. And then you'd have the smalls of Corey Warner, Campbell, Cleary, Hanley alongside the medium of Hayward. And then the bench would have Sheldrick, Roberts, McInerney, and Corey Warner, with the Florent being the sub, would be my optimal lineup. We know that that's not going to happen, of course. So they're probably going to put bloody Bice still in his halfback role, have like no touches of the footy. So I understand the trade out. I just think that there is bigger fish to fry, especially if TDK is out, but we don't know about that. Daniel, understand this as well. He's a guy that I'm almost tempted just to go a rookie down to him, just because in fantasy, he is just not getting enough of the ball. And even if he just goes and scores 80s, which he could easily translate to like 110s in Supercoach, it's not going to be enough in fantasy 80s. So, especially because he's going to lose coins. So I'd rather have a Sado Hooley go within 10, 15 points of him, and then just be able to use that cash next week to basically get a premium. I think it's just sort of upgrade cadence in a way. Clayton Oliver, understand this as well, probably playing a tagging role. Jaden Short out injured with the potential of him returning. It looks positive for him returning, but we'll see about that. Davidson, understand that cash gen is made. 70 break even though, so he's probably not going to drop too much if you keep him. Connor Stone doesn't look likely of getting back into the side. Caden Cleary has a 53 break even. Had a stinker after a couple good weeks, so that kind of sucks a little bit. Well, hopefully he bounces back at the SCG. Kako, pretty much the same principle. His cash gen is, his cash gen isn't cooked, but he probably just has enough skin on the bone there to get up to someone decent. And then same with Moraes, who was sub, starting to lose some cash there. 22K loss last week. Murphy Reed, similar thing, 18K loss last week with the 39. You'd expect him to potentially drop even further this week. De Koning, with the news of him potentially being out, and then Sanders as well, just doesn't look like he's getting the perfect role at the Western Bulldogs. Finn O'Sullivan, I understand that. He dropped some cash with the 29 and has a 49 break even. He's probably just going to stay around this sort of 400 to 420K range for quite a while. And then you've got Layla, Meek, and Huswaite. Meek and Huswaite are out for the side. I don't know why they've even named Huswaite as an emergency. I don't even believe he travelled with Cawthorn to the NT. So I don't think he's going to even have a shot at playing, but he was subbed out last week anyway, and has a 64 break even. And then, yeah, pretty much all these guys are high break-even type stuff. I would probably keep Elijah Hewitt if you are training him out, but he is only being traded out by 778 guys and is held by almost 20% of the community still. But anyway, let's just answer some questions here. Let me go back to this screen here. You've got Marco, which is saying trade Daniel or Lindsay first, and I can get an upgrade either way. I'd probably trade Daniel. I know that there is a massive potential for him to have a bounce back score, But also at the same time with Daniel, he's just going to be leaking cash, and I don't think he's going to be a top of the line guy. His last results in terms of his last 5 games, he's averaged 77. That's just not good enough. And he's averaged 69.7 in the last 3 games. So it shows that he's not really going to be up there in the top end. So I'd be trading him now whilst he's got the 809k, get him down to, or get him up to, someone, potentially even just going to a midfielder. Like he's a pretty much a, almost say a Caden Cleary down to a Cooper Simpson, and then Caleb Daniel up to a Tom Green. That's a pretty simple trade that I think some people will be considering, or potentially even getting a Sardar Julian alongside Caleb Daniel up to a primo midfielder, because those primo midfielders are going to be stacking 20, 30 points on Caleb Daniel each week, you would expect, if not more, if they can have a spike game. You could potentially even also be looking at the halfbacks that are sort of in that, I would say, 950, 960k region. You've got Zorko at 1.039 million and Sheasel at the 1.058. You've got also Lockie Whitfield up there and Wangani Malira, but how good's that? Ash is at 997. You've also got Nick Martin at 991 and Sinclair at 934. So you can easily get Daniel to Sinclair, I would say, as well there. And then it'll need a forward if Daniel is out. Forwards. So just looking at the best forwards to sort of trade in. Let's just look at the general stats. If we look at last 3 for forwards, you've got Kennedy. You could go early on Kennedy. I'd say Nick Martin's also up there. You could go for I'd probably say Nick Martin's probably the best option out of the forwards, that he's going to be near enough the top end. And that would be needing, what's that, 184k or something to jump up to a Martin. Let's just see. Caleb Daniel, 809k, and then a Martin is a 991k. So that would be 182k to jump up, which 182k, that's a simple, like, well, Lindsay could go down, but say a Caden Cleary down to a Simpson, or even Caden Cleary down to, I think, Al Hawley works, but you'd obviously have to have some DPP there, which probably isn't going to work because there isn't many forwards, but you'd have a 500k. Let me just see if there's any 500k midfielders that are being heavily traded out. Coach's choice, and then out. Say a Layla, if you were to have him, or a Xavier Lindsay could easily work there on that front. But you've also got Caden Cleary, Luke Traynor, as well as Connor O'Sullivan could be in that same category if you were to have them. But I don't know what exactly your side is looking at. But yeah, someone of that caliber could easily go out, as they've pretty much done their cash gen, and then you just trade them up to trade them down to a rookie and trade the likes of a Caleb Daniel up to a Nick Martin. That would probably be the best set of trades for you to do there. And yeah, so that is the trade targets for round 10 of the AFL fantasy season. Given that we have no questions here, and this one's been going for almost an hour, I'm going to stop it here. This hopefully will be a more regular live stream, I would say, in terms of Wednesday nights going live, whether that be fancy, whether that be Supercoach, we'll see in the future. It might be an alternating thing. I think I've mentioned that in the past. There could potentially be an alternating sort of viewpoint, going 1 week fantasy, 1 week Supercoach. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys tomorrow for my fantasy team reveal alongside my Supercoach team reveal, and my the tips I'll do on the Friday, because that seems to work all well. So yeah, remember to like and subscribe. Also follow me on Twitter and follow me on Spotify as well. It's a pretty common username. Well, for Twitter, it'd be KB Sports Fantasy, and also Kai Broom 35. And then for Spotify, I believe it falls under the KB Sports Fantasy as well. So I will see you guys tomorrow for those videos. Bye, guys.